There are three reasons I watch college football, and I'm a bit weird. I do not have a favorite team. So, number one, I love seeing future NFL quarterbacks. And for me, it's about seeing which guys emerge and who will become the quarterbacks of the future in the NFL. Then number two, every weekend there's a couple really good games, whether it's every week there's an upset or a great matchup or a game that goes down to the wire. They're close, tense, fun, exciting. That's something I love about college football. And then number three, the whole year builds to answering the question, who will get into the college football playoff? And usually it's Alabama and then three other teams. And we're like, well, we know Alabama's getting into. Who else is getting in? This year, the dominant team was Georgia. So we just had the, round one of the college football playoffs. And what happened was not surprising. It was just very disappointing. And I was hoping that maybe the underdogs could challenge the top. And no, not at all. Alabama beat Cincinnati 27-6. Georgia dominated Michigan 34-11. So I guess it's cool that Michigan and Cincinnati made the playoff for the first time, but they were not competitive at all. And in the Cotton Bowl, Alabama beat Cincinnati 27-6. I actually thought Alabama could have won by more. It's kind of weird that you watch a team dominate another football team and feel like they're actually not making the right calls from a coaching standpoint. Like, who am I to criticize Nick Saban? That's not what I'm doing at all here. But it was weird. I kept thinking, and maybe I'm criticizing Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator. I kept thinking, why is Alabama throwing so often? Why are you throwing the ball at all? Cincinnati actually played some pretty good coverage, and Alabama's offensive line was dominating. Basically, when Alabama would throw the football, it helped Cincinnati. It's like the only thing that Cincinnati had a real chance to stop. And I felt like if Alabama literally ran the ball every single play and maybe one or two times a drive, ran hard play action, took a shot vertically, I thought Alabama could have put up 40, 50 points. As it worked out, Brian Robinson, Alabama's running back, ran 26 times for 204 yards. Alabama had a total of 301 rushing yards on the day. But I'm not kidding. I think Alabama could have run for 400, maybe 450 yards if they really just only ran the football. I was sitting there kind of going why are you throwing the ball at all on first down? You don't need to. You're getting 6 yards a pop. Now, Alabama's quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young, played very, very well. He had 3 touchdown passes. And I thought Bryce Young outplayed Cincinnati's quarterback, Desmond Ridder. Although I will say, let's acknowledge Alabama has a better football team, a better roster. He has more help for sure. And Desmond Ridder, I thought, could have got more help from his receivers a couple times. He had some passes tipped at the line of scrimmage. But while both are NFL quarterbacks, I'm much more excited to see Bryce Young in the NFL than I am Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder's like a late first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick, and we'll see if he can develop into a starting quarterback and a franchise quarterback. Where Bryce Young, this dude's so dynamic, and he's a future top 5 pick where the difference, it's not that big of a gap, but Bryce Young's a top 5 pick where Desmond Ridder's going to be a late first-round, early second-round pick. Now, I was afraid this game would be a blowout. Alabama got the ball first, and right before the opening kickoff, I remember thinking kind of cringing, saying, this feels risky, and I don't like this. And then I thought, well, what if Cincinnati went on offense first and had to go up against Alabama's defense? And they go 3 and out. So I realized there's no good option here. It's a mismatch no matter how you start the game. Cincinnati's just overmatched, and they're going to need a lot of things to go right in order for them to win. And all game I was sitting there waiting is Cincinnati going to get a big play and steal a cheap touchdown here or there? And it never happened. They never really got a break, and the game was really never... I will say, if I can say anything positive about Cincinnati, I would say that they did better than Michigan. Cincinnati made me think for a brief moment. Even when they were down 17-3, they got the ball to start the second half. I was like, okay, they're in this game, and if they get a big play here, they could really make it a one-score game and keep it interesting. And for a moment, I thought Cincinnati had a shot, whereas watching Michigan and Georgia, Michigan just got dominated and, frankly, embarrassed. It was not a fun game at all. Georgia led Michigan 27-3 at halftime. It was awful. They led 34-3 in the fourth quarter. Finally, Michigan got a touchdown with 4 minutes left. They also got stopped, by the way, in fourth and goal. Like, Michigan just could not get anything going on offense, and I really kind of wish we would have gotten to see Ohio State's offense against Georgia's defense. That would have been a really interesting matchup to see if Ohio State could have challenged Georgia's defense. But look, Michigan deserved to be there. They won the Big Ten title, as weird as that is, although I don't know that were they the better team than Ohio State? Like, these debates are weird. And honestly, you know, this weekend was the best argument you could ever possibly make for expanding the college football playoff, because the two best teams got in and made it, sure. Although, like, they played, you know, the most recent game that Alabama played before this weekend was against Georgia. Alabama beat Georgia. They have to play this weird intermediate game to prove their worth or something against a bad football team so they can play each other again in the national title. It's like, it feels like charades. Like, what are we doing? Why even have these games that are meaningless? And I mean, they're not meaningless, but they're not competitive. They're not interesting. It feels token. Like, we're doing it to say we did it rather than because it's really to figure out who the ultimate best football team is in America. I don't know if that makes sense, but I really would like to see the college football playoff expanded, and some of these bad bowl games that are getting canceled and have teams pulling out or this or that. I think, frankly, like, you would take things a lot more seriously if you knew you had a shot at a national championship, and maybe players would take protocol more seriously. Maybe you would do different things. Like, I really think the bowl games are getting less and less interesting. This is by far the least interested I've ever been in non-college football playoff bowl games, and it's really getting to the point where you only watch the bowl game if your favorite team is playing. Because I as a objective third party, I'm like, I don't want to watch Oklahoma destroy Oregon. Like, things like that. I'm like, I don't care. And teams are pulling out, and I just really, really, really can't say enough how much I want 8 teams in a college football playoff where we're still going to have teams blow out other teams. But I mean, what if we had Georgia play? I'm trying to think. Maybe a better one. But what if we had Cincinnati play Michigan? What would have happened there? That would have been actually an interesting, fun matchup, and we could have got Georgia against Ohio State. And I want more teams in because I want better football games. And this weekend was an example of maybe the flaws of having only 4 teams in, and including the 2 best that are like head and shoulders above everybody else. Plus, let's be honest, the very best, if they have to play 3 games to get to, you know, or 2 rounds before the national title, that's 2 opportunities to slip up rather than just 1. And you never know. If you get more games going, maybe a team like Alabama, who is way better than their competition, has an off night, loses a game, and doesn't make it to the national title. So I want to see a expanded college football playoff, and I want, if nothing else, I just want more interesting football games than 2 blowouts and what felt like kind of a wasted weekend in college football. Now, Georgia's defense deserves a ton of credit. Michigan does not have a dynamic, explosive, elite offense. Like, not really. I compare them to Ohio State, and you're like, well, I mean, Ohio State, I think I would have loved to see Georgia's defense have to defend the Ohio State receivers, the 3 top receivers they have there. But still, even though I'm not going to give a ton of praise for Michigan's offense, Georgia's defense was outstanding. Nothing was open downfield. They showed great tackling and pursuit, and they really only gave up like 2, maybe 3 big catches the entire game. I mean, that's it. They really did shut down Michigan, and a lot of the big plays that Michigan got came later in the game in garbage time. So look, Georgia dominated. Michigan wasn't very competitive. I have a couple other notes, like Stetson Bennett, the Georgia quarterback, was awesome. He was, you know, truly outstanding. 20 for 30 passing, 313 yards, 3 touchdowns. Georgia ran a really cool trick play where they, you know, had an outside zone handoff to the running back, and the running back really sold the run fake. Looked like he was going to run downfield, then pulled up and threw a touchdown. And it was by the way, for a running back, that's a beautiful throw. It looked like a quarterback threw that football. So he threw a touchdown. That was Kenny McIntosh threw a really good touchdown pass from the running back spot for Georgia. James Cook, who is the brother of Vikings running back Dalvin Cook, was a stud. He ran 6 times for 32 yards. He also caught 4 passes for 112 yards and a touchdown. He only had one touchdown on that day, but it was a really awesome pass that kind of was the final dagger in the Michigan, hopes of winning. And then Michigan defensive end Aiden Hutchinson. Look, Michigan got dominated, but he had this play that blew me away where he read a screen pass and had an awesome tackle for loss where he just widened and he tackled a receiver on a bubble screen in the backfield from the defensive end spot. It was very cool. And I despite losing the game, Michigan had a really good year. He was awesome. And I think you have to kind of, even though, it was a rough weekend for Cincinnati and Michigan. I still want to tip my cap to them because, first of all, let's think about Michigan. Michigan, I think last year, or even when Michigan lost to Michigan State earlier, even this year, people were talking about potentially firing their head coach, Jim Harbaugh. And then he made the college football playoff and people clammed up really quick. All the people that were like, fire Jim, he can never win. I remember when they lost. And I was like, let's not fire the guy, but let's acknowledge what he is. He's not a guy who's going to consistently win these big games. And he actually, I thought, proved me wrong to some degree by beating Ohio State and winning the Big Ten title. And then Cincinnati, man, they had an undefeated season. They beat Notre Dame. Like, that's a good year for them. And I thought that really it wasn't about them being bad. It's that Michigan and Cincinnati ran into a brick wall of two way better football teams. And the games weren't competitive, but I would have loved to see. That's why I want an expanded playoff. I want to see Cincinnati play a game that they actually have a shot at winning because they're a good football team that if you give them real competition where they're actually on a level playing field, they probably win. Like they could have beat Michigan. I really believe that. But physically, Alabama is so much more dominating up front than Cincinnati. I really, truly thought Alabama didn't even have a very good game plan. Like they just were better physically. And that's there's not a lot you can do there when your team is just way better up front in the trenches. Now, Michigan had 3 drives in a row where they had a turnover. They had 2 interceptions and a fumble. The first interception it should have been defensive pass interference. That was a missed call in my opinion. And these 2 games, they were unnecessary and very disappointing. I thought 2 months ago we knew who the 2 best teams in college football were. All year I said the only team that can beat Georgia is Alabama. And then Alabama did beat Georgia in the SEC title game. So now January 10th, we're going to get the national championship in college football. It's a rematch for the national title, which means that it's not just a rematch of Alabama against Georgia, the rematch of the SEC title game. It goes back to January 2018 when Tua Tagovailoa threw a long touchdown to Devontae Smith for a touchdown to win the game, when Alabama beat Georgia in that national championship. And it's going to be awesome because Alabama is the only team all year that really stood up to Georgia and challenged them and also beat them. Bryce Young's the only quarterback who actually was successful against Georgia's defense all year long. And so I personally cannot wait for this game. January 10th, national title game coming up. It's going to be awesome. And really the only thing left I want to say is that, and this is a crazy thing. I heard this during the game, and I was like, that's true, isn't it? That's unbelievable. Every single recruiting class Alabama has had under Nick Saban since 2007 all the way through this year, 2021. Now we're in 2022, obviously, but this is the 2021 season. Every single recruiting class since 2007, the entire tenure of Nick Saban, has won at least one national title. It's unbelievable. The best they ever did, the 2009 recruiting class won 3 national titles during their time in Alabama. You're basically guaranteed to win a national championship if you go play for Nick Saban at Alabama. Alabama won it just last year. Here they are back again. It's unbelievable. And really all I'm begging for, I don't care who wins between Georgia or Alabama, but I want this final game to be close and interesting, come down to the final play. I think it will. But I don't care who wins. I just want it to be close at the end. And I want the fourth quarter of the next game to finally matter because these 2 games were they were done by Alabama's game is over by the middle of the third quarter. The Georgia game is over at halftime. I really, really desperately do not want that to happen in the national championship.